The interview began with poised smiles and polite exchanges. Meghan Markle seated across from George Stephanopoulos on Good Morning America to discuss her latest advocacy work and upcoming multimedia projects. But as the conversation pivoted to her ongoing tensions with the British royal family and her public image in the media, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. Stephanopoulos pressed her on past controversies, bringing up headlines that had long been dissected and debated. "Some critics say you've leaned too heavily into victimhood," he said, tone neutral but pointed.
Megan's expression, Stefan.
"Victimhood or accountability?" she replied, voice calm but edged with resolve. The tension mounted as she challenged the narrative being presented, questioning why women who speak out, especially women of color, are so often accused of playing a role. When Stephanopoulos doubled down, suggesting her statements might be strategic positioning, Meghan's response was swift and unwavering. If telling the truth is seen as strategic, that says more about the audience than the speaker. The studio went quiet, the tension palpable. Then, without warning, Meghan unhooked her mic, stood up, and said, "I came to discuss impact, not be dissected like a tabloid." With that, she walked off set. The moment exploded across the internet within minutes. Clips of Meghan's exit circulated rapidly, igniting a firestorm of reactions from every corner of the political and cultural spectrum. Some praised her for her grace under pressure and for walking away rather than letting her story be reshaped by implication and tone. Others accused her of dodging tough questions, reigniting the same narratives she had tried so long to escape. But beneath the noise, a deeper conversation began to emerge, one about media framing, power dynamics in interviews, and the narrow window of acceptable expression allowed to women, particularly women of color, in public life. ABC released a short, measured statement citing their commitment to journalistic integrity and respectful discourse. Stephanopoulos remained tight-lipped. Meghan, however, didn't rush to respond. Instead, she continued with her public engagements, her silence speaking louder than any press release could. For many, her walk-off wasn't weakness. It was a declaration that her voice would not be edited down to fit someone else's agenda. Even on morning television, in the days that followed, Meghan's bold exit became more than just a trending topic. It sparked a cultural reckoning. Media analysts and public figures dissected the moment on talk shows, op-eds, and podcasts, many arguing it exemplified the fine line between inquiry and interrogation. Supporters praised Meghan for refusing to let her lived experience be reduced to sensationalism, and for walking away with her dignity intact when the conversation shifted from understanding to provocation. Prominent activists and celebrities echoed her message, calling the incident a reflection of how powerful women are, too often cornered into defending their pain instead of being allowed to express it. Meanwhile, Meghan's charitable initiatives and podcast downloads saw a surge as audiences gravitated toward her unfiltered voice. She issued a brief statement days later. "I have no problem being asked questions, but I won't participate in narratives that flatten complexity into clickbait." That sentence alone reverberated across media circles. In a world where control of one's story is constantly challenged, Meghan didn't just defend her truth, she walked away with it intact, reminding everyone watching that walking out can be the loudest answer of all. As the noise around Meghan Markle's walk-off slowly settled, it became clear that the impact was far from fleeting. Universities began referencing the incident in media studies and gender communication courses, examining how tone, framing, and power dynamics intersect in interviews with high-profile women. Thought leaders dissected the clash as a symbol of how modern media often demands vulnerability, only to question its authenticity when offered. Meghan's decision to walk away instead of continuing to defend her experiences was reframed not as avoidance, but as a refusal to validate a format. That rewarded controversy over clarity. Meanwhile, her supporters continued to amplify her message, turning her statement, "I won't participate in narratives that flatten complexity," into clickbait, into a rallying cry for reclaiming agency in the public eye. For critics who had long accused her of being too controlled or too curated, this moment presented a paradox. Meghan had finally gone off script hand in doing so. She revealed just how much she'd been right to keep the script in her own hands all along. Weeks. Later, the echoes of Meghan's decision continued to ripple through pop culture and journalism. Morning shows, podcasts, and even rival networks began reassessing how they engaged guests in emotionally charged conversations. Whether true dialogue was even possible in formats built for speed, sound bites, and virality. Meghan, meanwhile, returned to her work with quiet focus, launching new partnerships and philanthropic efforts without addressing the interview again. That silence only amplified the statement her actions had already made, that walking away wasn't weakness, but wisdom. Behind the scenes, production insiders at Good Morning America reportedly faced internal pressure to rethink the tone and intent of their high-profile interviews. Some defended Stephanopoulos, arguing he was just doing his job, while others admitted the line between journalism and provocation had blurred long ago. Regardless, Meghan's exit had changed the temperature of the conversation. It reminded everyone watching, from young women to veteran broadcasters, that not every question deserves an answer, and that the most powerful moments often happen, not when someone speaks, but when they decide enough is enough and walk away with their truth intact. By the end of the month. Meghan Markle's walk-off was no longer just a viral moment. It had become a cultural milestone. It was replayed in retrospectives, discussed on international panels, and even sparked an SNL parody that only amplified its reach. But what made the moment endure wasn't the spectacle, it was the principle behind it. Meghan's refusal to allow herself to be cornered by polished provocation spoke to a growing fatigue with the media's reliance on gotcha moments and emotionally charged traps dressed up as journalism. Young creators, influencers, and journalists alike began citing her walkout as a case study in boundary setting, authenticity, and knowing when to stop performing for the camera. While critics continued to argue over her motivations, Meghan stayed silent, letting her work and her piece speak volumes. In an industry where many trade integrity for approval, Meghan did the opposite. She reminded viewers, especially women navigating public and professional scrutiny, that walking out isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself, your voice, and your right not to be misunderstood on someone else's terms. As time passed. Meghan's decision to exit the GMA interview was no longer viewed solely as a moment of personal defiance. It became emblematic of a broader shift in how public figures, particularly women, engage with media. Her walk-off prompted executives, producers, and publicists to reconsider how interviews are framed and what respect really looks like in on-air discourse. The idea that interviews must push for confrontation to be compelling began to lose credibility, with many outlets reevaluating how they balance hard questions with humanity. Meanwhile, Meghan's influence only grew stronger. Her foundation expanded its reach, her digital projects gained loyal followings, and her story continued to resonate with those who had felt similarly silenced or oversimplified in their own lives. The clash with Stephanopoulos wasn't her fall. Was her line in the sand? She never had to return to explain herself, because the world had already heard her message loud and clear. A voice doesn't lose power when it walks away, it claims it.